Welcome to the Gain Momentum podcast. We are now in our third year of recording, and we are starting the year incredibly strong with timeless lessons from Rachelle Peterson, Gain Advisor and Event Specialist. Rachelle, how are you?
I am really well, Adam. Thank you for having me. This is great. It's January and New Year podcast, first week. Brilliant. Love
Awesome.
it.
So we have also our co-host here, Vincent Thompson. And Vincent is coming from Valencia, and Rachelle is coming from London, and I am from Toronto.
Yes, but you got two Dutchies on a podcast. So
Oh,
if Vincent and I are going to go into Dutch talk, just let us do it.
all
It's
right.
fine.
Goed idee. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Fine
Adam's
enough.
Dutch is pretty good. Yeah.
So, Rachelle, start off. Let's talk about your global background.
Gosh. Okay. So I've lived in three of the best cities in the world: New York, Amsterdam, and now London. So I moved from Amsterdam to New York when I was 18 years old, back in the mid 80s. Then I'm giving my age away big time here. And absolutely loved it. Lived there for 7 years. Did a bit of hospitality background. It's really the only hospitality background that I have. Like, working in restaurants mainly. And absolutely loved living there. New York taught me grit, how to move and adapt, read a room in seconds. I think hospitality does that to you, right? It really does help you sort of learn how to read a room, and it's a great learning experience. And then I got married and moved to London 27 years ago. So I think what it is like is that you are, like London, New York teaches you grit, and then London sort of teaches you strategy and partnership and bigger picture. And I've got the Dutch sort of, straight directness. So it's a bit of a mismatch, to be honest with you.
A mismatch or just a synergy, right?
Synergy, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's. I just love to sort of have all of these combinations of all these different cities, and all of these different experiences that I've had over the course of my adult life, and it's really helped me, I think, communicate in a very effective way, because I can put myself into other people's sort of, I can relate to a lot of different people from lots of different areas, because I have lived in three major cities across the world.
Well, another big part of your career path has been mentoring and supporting women in the hospitality industry. Could you start by giving us that one statistic that points to employment in the industry, both on the front line as well as manager or executive?
Yeah, so this is a stat that I took about 6 months ago, and up to 65% of people that work in hospitality are female. But it's about 13% that are in the C-suite roles. So there is a really big disconnect between C-suite roles and women that are working in hospitality. And I work in on the tech side, so on the media side of hospitality. And you can see that even with CIOs and CTOs. I mean, I don't think anyone can name more than two or three female CTOs of hotel groups. And that's just part and parcel of what is happening in the industry. And, I'm trying to help bring a little bit more of a balance there. And I think it's really important that there is a balance there. And at the moment, unfortunately, there still isn't any of that available at the moment.
So, along that note, what advice would you give to women, and how are you helping women to advance
Yeah.
in hospitality?
I think honestly, it's use your voice. Don't wait to be invited into a conversation. Do everything you can to build a network before you actually need that network. Right? Hospitality is a relationship business. This is something that women know how to do really, really well. So get that coach. Try to get learn from experiences from others. I really wish that I'd done that years and years ago. I do coach other young females, but I didn't start talking to women in the industry until much later in life. And I wish I would have started that a really long time ago. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can learn from others. And I think it's really important to sort of protect your boundaries. You can be warm and generous without being available 24/7. And I think a lot of women are constantly available. Um, and the women that are in this industry that are at C-suite level, they're super powerful. So yeah, I think that is a really key component of the advice that I would give women if they want to, build their careers in hospitality, but not just in hospitality, but across the board, really.
Well, one other aspect to this is maternity, which is a second job, and if multiple kids, a third and a fourth and a fifth job, right?
Absolutely.
What advice would you give to women who have a very prominent career path and are ambitious in hospitality, but also have another whole job at home? What advice would you give?
Marry well. I am really lucky. I've got two children, and my husband and I really do share childcare. He actually stayed home for quite a few years when we first moved to London. He was at home far more than I was. It is really hard to combine, and you need a partner that understands that. And if you want to continue with your career, which a lot of women do, then you need to be able to help each other out as much as possible. And it's not easy, but it you can incorporate that.
Okay. To shift gears a bit here, your career has been along the intersection of media technology and hospitality. Before we define where that intersection is and the exciting opportunities, could you give us just a brief definition of what we mean by media technology?
Yeah. So I am really, I started off in media 30 odd years ago. So that's working with studios. I started out in theatrical, so working with cinemas, and in the print department. And I really enjoyed that. So, I worked with all of these different studios. And then at one point, about 20 years ago, I got a job offer to work for a company that distributes content in hospitality and airlines and cruise ships. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I absolutely adore how media can shape how guests feel. I think media is super important, um, you know, in every aspect, but especially to get that home away from home feeling. So when I was able to combine hospitality and media, that was like the ultimate for me. And I absolutely love how that sort of when those sort of things come together, you get experiences that, during that stay where they have these experiences, you know, they will take that with them long after they check out of a hotel.
So, what kind of content do we need to think about, Rochelle? Is that just, for example, in a guest room, or can it also be in public spaces? What do you see currently that is working, that has worked in the past, but might be shifting?
Yeah, well, things are shifting, right? Short content, people's attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. So, the sort of movie that you would have gotten 10, 15 years ago. I mean, I started out, distributing movies in hotels. And whilst that is still part and parcel of the sort of entertainment systems that you have in hotels, people don't have time anymore to really delve into it. So you can see the shift in bring your own device. So even in airlines, people are bringing their own laptops, their own tablets, their phones, and they have that content. They bring that content with them. So things have moved quite significantly, especially with the advent of social media. So short form content. And then I think what's really important to recognize for hospitality specifically is content in different languages. Yes, a lot of people speak English, but if you have a hotel that get a lot of guests from the Middle East, you really want to make sure that you have content that suits that demographic, right? Especially if you have a leisure hotel. There's a very big difference between business hotels and leisure hotels. If you have leisure hotels, and I know, Vincent, you've got kids as well. When kids make the decisions in the household, they also make the decisions when you travel. So you've got to make sure that you've got a little bit of everything, but short form content, content in different languages. Um, uh, if you are a business hotel, make sure you've got news in different types of news channels, sports, always sells, and then wellness. Especially when you start at the beginning of the year, wellness content does really, really well in hotels. So make sure you've got some yoga videos and things like that. A lot of women don't like to go to the gym in a hotel, but they will get their yoga mat out. And if you've got some wellness videos on your TV screen, I actually like to watch that kind of stuff. So there are definitely changes happening within the industry.
So just for clarity, when you say, yoga videos in on the TV in the room, you're talking about in-room programming, for wellness. But of course, the short form videos, that content may be more applicable to getting people in the room, such as on Instagram and TikTok. Is that what you're
Yeah,
also referring to?
Instagram, TikTok, YouTube.
Yeah.
I think YouTube is probably the most watched content in a hotel room. So, just make sure that guests have access to different types of content. I mean, there are always people that are not going to even turn the TV on anymore. But, realistically, there's a lot of casting happening these days, and there is a lot of short form content. As a hotel, as long as you look at your own demographic, so where do your guests come from, the type of guests that you have, you can look that up on your systems, right? And just sort of check to see what are these people, what are they looking for. You can see what these days with the digital technologies, you can see these days what guests are watching. It makes no sense to have things that you're paying for as a hotelier, and have an all singing, all dancing sort of technology system, and nobody's watching it. So just be smart about it. Look at what your guests are watching. Look at what your guests want, and then change it accordingly.
And how do you see the specific technology tools, contributing to that? I mean, 9 out of 10 times when I check into a hotel, it's gotten better over the years, but the AirPlay function or casting function just doesn't work, or the password is incorrect, or you need a code, or you need to call the reception. And how important nowadays, is that? And do you see a lot of progress, for example, for the last 12, 24 months in choosing the right technology to meet those media needs?
Yeah, it is really. I think the one thing that a lot of hotels do not understand is that their guest demographic is from really, really young kids to my parents' age. If you have a hotel that happens to have a lot of older people, um, they do not. My mom and dad, casting, not something that they know how to do. And so it's much more complicated. And I think when CTOs and CIOs make the decision to have the all singing and all dancing latest technologies, they forget that they know how to do that. They know how to control that. They're very tech savvy, whereas maybe a great proportion of their guests are not. So yes, casting is great. It needs to work, and it needs to work fast, right? I mean, we all have very short attention span. So if something doesn't work in a couple of seconds, you've lost them. But make sure that you just do not just do casting, that there is something else there as well, for so that you do have a couple of TV channels. It doesn't have to be great. You don't need 200 TV channels. Nobody wants to go scroll through the GUI through 200 TV channels. No one wants to do that. Figure out which 10 to 15 TV channels are the most popular and make sure you've got those. You don't need the rest. And then have a good costing solution. And something with a QR code usually works pretty well, but the technology keeps moving. And of course, these contracts that these hotels have can be easily 7 years long. But by that time, after 7 years, the technology has changed so much. So you've got to be more adaptable, and try to find a solution that is as adaptable as possible. It's actually a really difficult, you know, uh, it's a difficult decision to make because A, it's expensive, and B, contracts tend to be long, and technology moves so fast.
Well, I was going to add a point there. You mentioned the word expense, and I immediately think 7 years life cycle on any capex. How do you predict what's going to happen in 5 years' time with regards to the physical changes that would happen to accommodate future media needs? And I'm thinking here that it is much easier to update some software systems than it is to rip out televisions and install new cabling. How do you future proof?
Yeah, it is almost impossible to future proof, especially, when you're looking at life cycles of TVs and forget about cabling, even especially in Europe where hotels have, they're older, they're in old buildings, they don't necessarily have, all of the infrastructure, they're dead zones with the Wi-Fi. It can be extremely complex. It is easier in, I don't know, in the Middle East where cities are being built from the ground up, and you don't have necessarily the same problems. But in Europe, it is really, really difficult. Um, are you able to future proof? You can only do so much. Um, it- Life cycles of televisions. It's really interesting because I was in Tokyo the year before last, and I was in a really, really nice five-star hotel in the middle of Tokyo. Lovely hotel, a little bit tired. And the first thing I do, because it's part and parcel of my job, is to look at the TV. And I look at the TV and I check the model number of the television. The TV was 17 years old. Uh, it was it really did need to be changed. 17 years old that TV was. So yes, so it wasn't great, but because these things, these upgrades can be super, super expensive, you have to have a really good CTO that can, that understands the different players within the market. And that's what consultants and advisors can come in really, really handy, right? They know a lot of these things. Costing is definitely the future, but there's a lot of things that still need to be done in order to get it right. The Like Vincent said, the technology is not there yet, and if some of this technology is a little bit older and you started to go into costing too soon, the leaps and bounds that that technology takes, by the time 4 or 5 years roll around, it's obsolete.
Pretty profound point to touch on there in terms of giving people some ideas for what they got to prepare for. Um,
Yeah.
Rochelle, one other key area where you're involved in is leading and curating events and looking at events from a media perspective, but also looking at them from the social and community perspective and storytelling. Can you talk about what makes an event memorable in 2026?
Yeah. Um, so events are changing. Events that you did before COVID were very different than events now. I hear this all the time, and I'm the best example of this, right? So I buy tickets to major hospitality and media events because those are the two types of events that I tend to go to. Um, and I get the tickets. I often don't even show up on the show floor anymore. I definitely don't go into the conference hall. I mean, it sounds really horrible, right? I don't go to the conference hall. I don't go into onto the show or a trade floor. Maybe I'll just do a quick sort of. No, everything happens at the executive breakfast that are being organized, at the drinks that you have, in the evening with a bunch of clients, at dinner, much more intimate settings that will actually help your business grow. Yes, everyone gets together at the same place, and that's what's so important and what is key. But as far as I'm concerned, the business is being done outside of these events at the little intimate sort of parties. And it's the one thing that we do really, really well again is to bring people together in one space, whether that is for an executive breakfast or whether that is for a VIP party. And this is where you connect with people. I remember 20 years ago, I went to events all the time, and my boss at the time was asking me, how many business cards did you get? And I said, oh, two, three. And it was like incensed. He was like, how? Like, how are you going to follow up? I said, don't worry about it. I spoke to the, CEO of this, the CEO of that. I had a lovely conversation. He will remember. It's like, what are you talking about? He will remember. I said, well, he talks about the football, or we had a conversation about his father-daughter dance that he was having the week after. I will give him a call or I will send him an email asking him how that dance was. How did little Sophia, how was it for her? Because that is what is memorable. It's the storytelling and it's the connection that you make that is memorable. And the story about little Sophia is actually a true story because within a month, I had a six-figure order that came in because I followed up, not with my product. They knew who I was, but because I actually took the time to ask him about his father-daughter dance. And I think that is what makes an event memorable. Um, it was like that 5 years ago, and it's like that in 2026. Stop selling your services. Start talking to people on a human level, because you will be much more memorable and you will be much better at your job overall.
So that whole idea of the business cards there and measuring 2 to 3, and this comes back to, I guess, the whole idea of what we measure in order to gauge success of a conference, event, trade show, whatever. And you're talking about more human and qualitative efforts, asking about connecting with people. What should people measure?
I mean, you can measure, the orders that you end up because, an event costs money, right? And so if you as a company spend, I don't know, for the sake of argument, 100,000 to go to an event because you've got a booth and you got this and you got flights and you got all of that, within your sort of 12 months, you need to sort of be able to figure out how much money did this event generate at the end of the day. It's how you do it. The ROI will be there. Uh, you know, in my opinion, the ROI is better when you connect with someone on a human level than when you try to sell your services. Because I tell you something, especially in hospitality tech, the competition is huge. I mean, the number of just PMS systems and Wi-Fi providers and all of that is unbelievable. How are you going to stand out? Right? Not by your product. Your product may be amazing, but you know what? That CTO of that hotel group that you've been trying to court, he is going to be talking to 20 other people that sell a very similar product to yours. How are you going to stand out? You're not going to be standing out by explaining your product. Yes, they need to know fundamentally how your product works. But if you do not connect with someone like that on a personal level, if you just do your job, and you don't look beyond, you've lost them. And as far as I'm concerned, ROI for me is always worked better if I connect with someone on a human level, on a storytelling level.
It's funny that you say that, Rochelle, because we've been you've joined Gain, I think, what is it, half a year ago, a little bit more, and since then we also connected on LinkedIn, and it seems that you take that human level or personal approach, from an event point of view, to LinkedIn as well, right?
Oh
You
yeah.
you you write very personally and make it more human than pitching or salesy. Is what it seems to me, at least.
It's absolutely true. I decided when I went through redundancy 18 months ago and I stopped working in corporate, and I had a corporate career for 30 years. And I thought I really enjoyed my corporate career. Don't get me wrong, I really, really did. But what I realized quite quickly is that, you know, working in corporate, so I worked at CNN, very easy to get through a door when you work at a major corporation like that. Much more difficult when you have a consultancy called LOQIA Group to get into the door. So I realized quite quickly that, you know, people are not buying from companies, they're buying from people. And so, you know, LinkedIn is my social media of choice. I am on some of the others, but I'm not very active. But because I'm building my own business, LinkedIn made a lot of sense for me. And I realized quite quickly that human personal stories work a lot better and get me a lot more interaction in my DMs, because that's where the business happens, than anything else. So even if I were to, and you can look it up. I mean, when we did Insolito Marsala, I did quite a few LinkedIn, stories, but there were always stories that also talked about the event. We have no vacancy coming up in February. I will be doing some LinkedIn stories, but there will be stories that will have a component and that will talk about the Gain event at No Vacancy, but it will also have some other bits and pieces in there. And I weave my personal life into that. Uh, and I think that is what really helps to sell. Because, like I said, people buy from people. They don't necessarily buy from businesses. It's that personal branding, right? That really seems to work.
Yeah, and you mentioned 2 events here that I'd like to segue into. You mentioned Insolita Marsala and No Vacancy London, 2 events that Gain, our organization, is involved with designing events, and specifically around your points of warmth, developing personal relationships at events, and really adding that deeply human premium. Um, I'm wondering if you could touch base on those 2 events and how you have helped design those events to really maximize audience engagement.
Yeah. Insolita Marsala was my favorite event last year. It was small. It was, intimate. Uh, it was a local event. It was all about wine and food and technology and connecting with a community and building something special. It was 100% different from anything else. And I think that's what makes an event memorable, especially for Gain.
Sorry to interrupt here, but could you start off and just tell people what Insulita Marsala is? Where is Marsala?
It's Marsala's in Sicily. It's a beautiful sea coast town in Sicily. It's where Marsala wine comes from. So we visited quite a few vineyards, which is one of my favorite things, by the way. It's great. But I think what made that event so special is the intimacy, and the whole local community participates in this event. It's an event where all of the local hotels, and they're they're small hotels, right? It's a small town, but all the restaurants, everyone comes together to try and help Marsala to become more of a tourist attraction to help the local hotel schools. It is a small event, but it sort of explains a little bit more about, you know, the connection of the community with hospitality and the restaurant business. They have two, I think they have two or was it three hotel schools in Marsala alone, Vincent.
Yeah, they have a lot of hotel schools, a lot of students that are really eager to learn, and also it's Sicily. It's a there's a lot of opportunity to invest into the island in the local community, and hospitality is one of the best ways to do so, to make a lively city, to make a lively neighborhood. Um, and the fact that there were so many students and that they really wanted to uplift this entire city through their expertise, through their skill, through their passion. So it's a really community driven event, I'd say.
Yeah. And it sort of helps the city to retain their youth. What you don't want to do is that, for them to all to go to Milan and Rome and you want the tourists to come to Sicily and explore the wines and explore the restaurants and make it a thriving community. And if you have two or three hotel schools, and everyone leaves, then you educate these young teenagers, but then they go. But try to attract them to stay. Is really what this is all about, and is trying to build that up and build that community and have people come in and enjoy Marsala and all it has to offer. And giving these kids a reason to stay and to build that themselves in Sicily. And so it was so different, and it was everyone that went, they only had lovely things to say about it. It was so well organized. It was so well done. It was fabulous.
Wow. Um, on a different scale now, looking ahead to No Vacancy London. For reference, we are recording on January 9th, and No Vacancy London is February 25th and 26th at the Excel Center.
Yes, right in my home.
Yeah. Tell us about this event. What
February
size?
in London, it's going to be great.
Oh, it's best weather ever. Yeah. Not raining at all. No chance of rain.
None whatsoever, or snow, or ice, or anything like that.
Yeah.
No, no vacancy is brand new to London. It's originally an Australian show. It's been going on there, I think, 7 or 8 years, and they now brought it to London. And we're very very lucky to be involved with them. With the organisers called Terrapin. And it's creating, and I live in London, and it's already creating quite a lot of buzz. We have about 7 8 weeks out at the moment, and it is a conference. It's a middle size, I'd say. It has, the usual, the booths. It has a conference. It has stages. It has a fantastic sort of startup program. So especially for hospitality technology startups, which is brilliant. And then we have a fantastic VIP party just outside of the Excel Center. At the Waterfront Bar and Kitchen, which is a VIP event that we're organizing for Gain with the help of No Vacancy. So we're the official sort of VIP party.
So with a VIP event, you're getting people after a long day standing on their feet at a expo, and then you use this tool for social lubrication called alcohol. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
There will be alcohol available. There will be bites and a little bit of food, but conversation. It's a relaxed atmosphere. It's right on the Thames. Hopefully the weather will help. It will be beautiful. And yeah, it's just a chance to connect with people in a different type of setting. And I think if you are going and if you're on the show floor or if you have a booth, then you get a certain number of people. If you then also either attend or sponsor, uh, the Gain VIP event, you are basically extending your investment in no vacancy with, adding all of that and having all of these VIPs come that are coming through the door at the waterfront. And I think that's what it's all about. It's extending your day over a glass of wine or over a beer, and just talking to people on a much more casual level. It's what we talked about earlier, right? In the podcast. I think it's so important. There's a time and place for having, conversations in booths and talking business, but there's also a time and place for having a different type of conversation, a little bit more human and a little bit more of a connection.
More warmth.
That's it, exactly. And I think this conference will be doing a bit of both. So you get the best of both worlds, which is what I think is brilliant. It's what I do it for. It's what it's all about, is being able to do, you do the business side of it, but you also are able to go and then have a relaxing drink with this hotelier or with that supplier, or yeah.
So to close out here, let's look at this event, the VIP event that you and Vincent have crafted. And let's draw it back to this whole idea of audience engagement through community. And what goes into a VIP event? You obviously have the ones that people are always thinking of. You have the alcohol, light bites, great food, relaxing setting, maybe a live band, maybe some good media technology that's in there. Yeah. What are some other things, Rachelle, that people aren't thinking of in terms of designing a great event that builds community?
Oh, I mean, with social media, it is very much we'll go, we'll have a great time. It's all being sort of, photographed and filmed, to be ready for social. Um, it, it's all about storytelling and giving people that sort of sense of warmth and community. Those are the types of things that make an event worthwhile and that make, people keep coming back to something like that. And it's a different way of connecting. You can start a conversation with someone at a booth and then find you're meeting up with them at a VIP event, and your conversation takes a total turn. You actually get to know someone, and I think that's probably the best way I can describe why this is so important. That you just don't do your sort of 9 to 5, but you also open yourself up to different types of conversations with people that you wouldn't necessarily talk about in a booth, and you being able to be a little bit more relaxed, and you don't need a lot. You just need the right atmosphere, the right ambiance, and the right people. And I think we got all three done. We're doing all three at No Vacancy London. We have the right event, we'll have the right people and the right ambience, and we've got beer. I mean, it's brilliant.
What else? Yeah.
What else do we need?
Wine, for me.
Oh yeah, that's big. I'm not a beer drinker, and even though I'm Dutch, I'm not a beer drinker. So yeah, wine will be really good.
Well, that's a great way to end it off in terms of how to craft a great event, bringing together events and media and crafting that all for a modern day audience that is overloaded with technology and looking for human connection. Vincent and Rachelle, is there anything important that we haven't covered that you want to close out with?
Not really, except if there is any interest in sponsorship, DM me, look me up on LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn every single day. I know, crazy. And yeah, I'm happy. We're happy to craft something special for you. Just let me know.
Yeah. And if you're a hotelier listening to this, feel free to DM us as well to get an invite for the party. If you're a vendor, we'll think about it. But let us know.
Oh,
I think we have to get the ratio of vendors and
Yeah.
hoteliers really right. And I can tell you that, the ratio has to be at least 50% hoteliers with vendors. And once you get that ratio right, um, you know, magic,
Magic.
magic.
Rachelle, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Absolute pleasure. It's been so much fun. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Gain Momentum podcast. To stay up to date, make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Gain Advisors, head to gainadvisors.com.